In this lecture, we'll create the first Lambda function. To do that, go to the orders API, go to source main Java, delete the default code that got generated. We'll be starting from scratch. Delete that package, also delete the test package. Go to source main Java, right click. The first step before we create the Lambda itself is to create the model object, the order object that will hold on to the data for us. Order is the name com.bharat.aws.lambda dot, we can call it APIs dot DTO, the data transfer object, finish. It's not really transferring the data. We can also call it model if you want to, the package name instead of DTO. Within the order, we have three fields: public int ID, public string item name, the last one public int quantity of the item that is being ordered. We can generate a constructor for this or create a constructor. Public order, the parameterized constructor, which makes it easy to create the order class by passing the data. String item name, and the last one int quantity. And within the constructor, this dot id is equal to id, this dot item name is equal to item name, and the last one, this dot quantity is equal to quantity. When we define a parameterized constructor like this, we also should define a default constructor. Otherwise, the compile time will not add that default constructor, and there will be issues at runtime when the Lambda service tries to create an instance of this. So always define a default constructor if you define a parameterized constructor. And if you want to use private here, you are welcome to do that. When you do that, do provide the mutator setter methods. So that's the DTO, or the model object that represents the data that comes in and goes out. Next, right click, create a new class, which is our Lambda function. Call it create order Lambda. This will directly go under the APIs package instead of the DTO package. Finish. The Lambda function itself is a public function. Public, it returns an API gateway response. So this is the event which we are using from the, if you go to the pom.xml, the events here, AWS Lambda Java events, they give us all the events. When a resource fires an event, we can use a request event, and to send that resource a response back, we use the response events. In this case, API gateway is the resource that is firing the event. So API gateway proxy response is what will go back from this Lambda. Call this create order, the function name, and the input is API gateway proxy request event. Call it request. So this request will have a lot of data inside it, whatever the API gateway sends us. So we'll be using just the body part of this request. It will have the HTTP headers, etc., which we don't care right now. It will also have the query parameters if you want to access them. For now, it's very simple. So using this request, we are going to create an order object by using Jackson libraries. We'll do the binding into a Java object. Hit Ctrl+1 on this guy. Let me do a Ctrl+Z there. Ctrl+1, add a return statement so the compiler error is gone. Next, create a Jackson object mapper. So object mapper is the class we are going to use. So new object mapper. Once the instance is created, assign that to a local variable, call it object mapper. Object mapper dot read value method will convert different types of data. If you pass in the source here, it will take that, it will convert it into whatever object we want. We want that to be converted into order.class. We know that. And the data itself in this case comes from the request.getBody. So this request event has the body which will send whatever comes in the HTTP request to the API gateway. Now hit Ctrl+1. We need to handle the import first, and then it also throws an exception. Ctrl+1, add throws declaration. It throws a JSON mapping exception. This object mapper from Jackson library throws a JSON mapping and JSON processing exception. If something goes wrong when it tries to parse the JSON that comes in into this order class, if the fields doesn't match, if there is any other JSON syntactical problems, it will throw the appropriate exceptions. So this will create an order object for us. Hit control 1, assign statement to a local variable, and we get an order object which represents the JSON that comes in the request. We can use this order object, get the data out and store it into a database, send it to another system, whatever we want to do, we can do it. We'll be storing that data into DynamoDB in lectures later on. For now, we need to send an API gateway proxy response event back. So new, create an API gateway response event, and you can set the status on it, dot with body, with headers, with status code. See that? Status code 200 is what I want for a successful response. Dot with body, you can include some body in the response within double quotes. This has to be string. So I'm saying order created, or you can simply say order ID colon plus the order dot ID field. It's a public field, so it's a little weird if you are coming from a lot of Java experience. We are directly accessing the fields like this. It is okay in the world of Lambda. So in this lecture, you have created a model object for your application that can hold on to the data that comes in and goes out. Then you have created a create order Lambda function within which the Lambda function itself is triggered by API gateway. So we receive a API gateway proxy request event. We parse the body of that request event, which will have the data that comes in from the end user or another client application. We parse it into an order object. Then we are simply returning the response in which the status is 200 and we include the order ID. This is a very static API as of now, nothing special here. Later on, it will become dynamic once we use DynamoDB.